Welcome to the Wordsmith Forge Christian Fiction Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Baines, and this is where you meet the storytellers behind the stories you love and the ones you have yet to discover. In today's episode, I sat down with author and missionary Philip Wilder, a man whose passion for adventure and faith has taken him around the world and into the heart of Christian storytelling. From his early love of writing to his time on the mission field, Philip shares how his experiences in nature, culture, and faith shaped the themes of his books. If you've ever wondered how a bold life of faith can translate into powerful fiction, or how creation itself reflects the Creator, this conversation is for you. Make sure to hit the subscribe, give us a like, and share this episode with someone who needs encouragement to step out in faith. Let's get started. Well, welcome, Philip. I'm so glad you could join me on this episode of the Wordsmith Forge Christian Fiction Podcast. Would you tell our audience something about yourself?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome.
A few things about myself. I am a Christian. I am an author, and I love exploring God's creation. I love evangelism. I spent 2 years doing missions work in the Middle East, and I also love writing. I have been writing since before I could spell my own name. So it's been quite the journey, and it's really cool how God's brought me all the way to here, and who knows what God's going to do next.
Excellent. One of my other authors that I interviewed said he started writing before he could read, and many of his writings are misunderstood. So I think everyone could agree with that. So we've talked briefly about several things, and I think it's interesting that at your age you've already served as a missionary in the Middle East. Whereabouts did that take place, and were you sponsored? How'd that come about?
So, yes, I did serve with a sending organization. I shouldn't exactly say that organization's name, nor can I really share where I went, unfortunately, but to the Middle East where they speak Arabic.
Okay, and I take it was not in the cockpit of a B-2.
No, it was definitely not.
Okay, well,
it would be cool to see inside of one of those.
Yeah, it was kind of secretive, so I didn't know.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you're soon, like next week, you're going to be off on another trip.
Yeah. Next July 7th, I'll be going off to South America. Just a week-long trip. We do a lot of week-long trips, so yeah. I won't be spending 2 years there.
Well, will this be a kind of a missionary trip too, or?
Yeah, so I work with a ministry called the Great Commission Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
We travel around the world and train churches in evangelism and discipleship. So that's what I'll be doing down in Argentina and Chile, and I've traveled all around the world doing this. We've gone to over 50 countries already to train people.
Yeah.
And I personally have been to 35 countries, not all of them with the GCA, but most of them for missional purposes, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, you must have a lot of stamps in your visa.
Yeah, I'm on my third passport.
So where do you live here in the United States when you're in the United States?
I live in Colorado, up north near Fort Collins, which I'm always surprised that so many people know where Fort Collins is, because I tend to not know where many other cities are in the U.S.
In the U.S., but
and Fort Collins is a pretty small one, so.
Yeah. Well, side note, I wouldn't know where Fort Collins is because it's the headquarters of the Arapaho Roosevelt National Forest, and I worked out of Sulphur Springs, just on the other side of the Rocky Mountains, as a district ranger for a while.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah, up Poudre Canyon there.
Yeah, have you seen that most of it's burned down, unfortunately?
Yeah. I still go on out with incident management teams and help with wildfires.
Wow, good for you.
Do not dig line or do anything that would bother my knees. But so Have you always lived around Fort Collins?
Well, 2 years I spent in the Middle East. 2 years I also spent in Albuquerque, but I grew up in the Denver area.
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of definitely a Colorado native, but a lot of people up in this region don't like to think of me as a native because so many people recently have moved to the northern Colorado region. And so they're annoyed with new people moving in. And I am one of those new people, but I moved from Denver, not from all the other places that people are coming from.
Yeah, not from Los Angeles.
Yes, not one of the people from California, which we love people from California.
Yes, we do.
But there is a lot of them.
They are, and they have their own way of doing things.
They sure do. They sure do. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not my favorite.
Yeah. So around there, do you have any place that's especially special to you? Some place where you go to recharge your batteries or refresh your soul?
Yeah, there's a few places. I mean, I just love nature. So it's great to be able to get out into nature, but it's a little bit harder to get deep into the mountains to a spot where I can set up my hammock and rest and relax. So mostly I go around the Poudre River. There's a lot of trails here, and I'll set up my hammock along the Poudre River. Though this year there's like an onslaught of ticks, so I haven't been going there as much. I went there once to write, and I found like 8 ticks on myself within like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay,
yeah,
I can't focus. I can't focus on this, and I don't want to get Lyme's disease, so I'm going to go somewhere else, which actually ended up being a really good thing because I ended up going to a local coffee shop that has my book on consignment.
Wow, yeah.
And I asked them if I could just sign books while I was there, and so I put up a little picture thing saying, hey, local author here signing books, and got quite a few sales that day, and that kind of opened up a new strategy for me to get book sales of going to coffee shops, because there's another coffee shop, a very Christian coffee shop here that I know both of the owners for. And so I reached out to them like, hey, can I go and just sit down and sell any books to anyone who's interested? They said, yeah. And so pretty much every time I go and sit down there, I sell like 7 to 10 copies just sitting there writing, which is, that's pretty nice.
Well, yeah, you were going to sit and write anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Although I do miss my river. And sometimes I do need to get out into the wilderness because I love writing nature kind of, I mean, not like nature books, but like survival books, like Jake Rogers' Planet. This guy's on a planet surviving the elements. And so it's really nice to be out in nature, experiencing it for myself, because it just, the ambiance of nature around you is just so important, and it's so subconsciously gets put on the page. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, just across the hill there is the Never Summer Wilderness, which is just an amazing place up out of Grand Lake. But that's on the other side of the park from you.
Yeah, it's a little tricky to get there. It takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, especially in the winter. You just don't.
Yeah.
Just so people kind of can get an interesting perspective of who Philip Wilder is. What are your 3 favorite songs?
3 favorite songs? Interesting. I'm not the best singer, and so I think that kind of influences my decision here. I really like listening to movie soundtracks.
Oh.
So there's I can name several movie soundtracks that I love their music in. Like, of course, Lord of the Rings is awesome.
Yeah.
Star Wars is pretty good. How to Train Your Dragon is really awesome. So there's a few movies whose soundtracks I like. As far as individual songs that really get me hyped up, there's one called Run Wild by For King and Country, and I really like that one.
I'll have to look for that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's very upbeat. You'll notice all the songs that I listen to are like pretty energetic.
Yeah.
They're not songs that you sit down and like, oh, I could fall asleep to this. You know, there's songs that like, I like powerful songs with powerful words. And so that song to me is like, I'm getting ready to fight in a war. Yeah. It's kind of the thought.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is true. The Christian walk is basically fighting the war. So
yeah, it should be.
It inspires me to really stand up for what's right and to write what's right.
Yeah.
Write what's right. Wow, that's a lot harder to say.
Yeah,
to write what's right, to inspire others to help fight in the war as well too.
To right the wrong. To write the right. Okay, I see what you're saying. To write.
Yeah, I want to write the right thing.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Well, you kind of answered my second question along with that, and that would be, what's 3 of your favorite movies? It's movies that have good soundtracks.
Yes, that definitely helps. That definitely helps. Man, my 3 favorite movies. It's so hard to pick up. It's kind of like somebody asking you, like, what's your favorite book in the Bible? And it's like, well, that depends on how I'm feeling.
Yeah, or what you need that day.
Yeah. As far as movies go, though, I really don't like watching movies twice.
Oh, well.
Like, movies I really, really liked was the first How to Train Your Dragon, so there you go. I also really liked Star Wars growing up. I don't know if they're quite as much my favorite now. Lord of the Rings is also awesome, too, but, like, I haven't watched Lord of the Rings in probably 15 years, if that.
Well, you got to have the time.
Yeah, and that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Especially the extended cuts, which I don't think I've ever seen the extended cuts.
Mm.
So it's hard for me to pick a favorite movie because I really like... Here, this is my favorite movie. You ready? My favorite movie is a movie that is inspirational, full of adventure, just like out there in the wilderness, and with characters that have to figure out what is the right decision when, like, the decisions facing them are both good and bad. And they got to figure out, like, well, how do I make the right decision when, like... Yeah, it's like, if I make this decision to save these people, then, like, my friend dies. Or I can save my friend, but then these people die. So it's like, what do I do? So I love movies where people really have to wrestle with, like, what is the right decision? Because I think oftentimes there's movies where it's like, the right decision is obvious, and you don't really have to think about it. It's just making that decision and carrying it out, which is pretty hard, which, I mean, those movies are good, but it adds an extra layer to it where it's like, you're fighting for this good thing, but then in that good thing, there's a decision, and you're not quite sure which decision is the better of the two.
Yeah.
So it's not a movie per se, but that's like what I like to watch. I just love exploring new things. I love exploring new stories. And oftentimes when I watch a movie I've already seen, then it's like, okay, well, I know how it's going to end, so it doesn't quite grip me as much.
One of my first interviews was with James L. Rubart.
Oh, cool.
And he said, if you tell me your 3 favorite songs, I can tell you the theme of your life.
Yeah.
And he would have to do that. I can't figure out your 3 favorite songs and tell you the theme, but I guess he's figured that out. I haven't spent that much time thinking about it. So I thought, well, that's a good question to ask people. And I'll just ask them their movies too, just to kind of put some icing on the cake. But I think that's kind of fun.
That is fun. I love Jim Rupert. He's a great guy, and he's helped me a fair bit. Not necessarily just in creating this book, but just in, like, knowing the right next steps as an author.
Did you attend any of his writing sessions?
I did his book launch blueprint back in 2020. And then I've seen him at different events as well, too.
Yeah. I would like to meet him because I just think it's neat that he was the first person I interviewed.
Yeah.
And I keep going back to some of that interview, but you know, all of the people I've been interviewing come from such different walks of life.
Yeah.
But there's a common thread there that is so precious that links us all together.
It's true.
And it's not just authors. Everyone in Christ is linked together.
Right.
Just like, I wouldn't say it's like the disciples were close to Jesus, but a lot of other people were Christians too, or followed Jesus too. I wouldn't put us in that particular role, but because I feel like that's pretty high and mighty. But we still have a common thread, I think.
Yeah.
Which is pretty special.
It could almost be more of like medics from different branches of the military getting together and talking.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, you experienced this? Yeah, me too. It's like, what? You experienced that also?
Would you mind telling us something about your walk with Christ? How did that come about? Yeah, that's a great
question. At a very young age, I think I was maybe 5 or 6. My mom, she was very missional. She actually, her and my dad, they worked with YWAM for a bit. And then my mom volunteered with a ministry called CEF for a little while. And so my mom was just very missional with us kids. And so I remember one day when I was like 5 or 6, realizing like, how do I know that'll be forever with God in heaven? Like, I need to figure that out, because that is the most important question I could ever get the answer to. And so I went and talked to my mom that morning, and she walked me through like, it's like, you got to believe in Jesus, that he died on the cross, rose again. You got to ask him to save you from your sins. And if you believe all that and ask him that and invite him into your life, then like you'll be saved and you'll be with him. And, of course we need to keep living and walking according to what God calls us to do. But like, you can know that you'll go to heaven. And I remember walking away from that conversation thinking like, I never have to worry about this again. And it was such a relief. Like at the age of 5 or 6, I remember having that thought and being like, I am good. Now anything can happen in life and it will not be a problem because I am good. Like I have eternity promised. And so I'm very grateful for that, and very grateful that God was with me and just kept, God was very faithful and very good throughout my whole childhood and teen years. I never really had like a rebellious phase, which is great because God was just so present. And I think a lot of that comes down to like my mom was very purposeful in making sure that we had a daily time in the Word, like us personally and then us as a family. I grew up homeschooled as well too. I think that all played into it. Like I remember there was a time when I started feeling tempted, and right as I was like about to make the decision to step into sin, God speaking to me being like, hey Philip, why are you doing this? Like it might feel good, but after that, it's going to be a chain tied around you for years, maybe even the rest of your life. Like if you just turn away right now, you're never going to have to really worry about this, and you're never going to be chained up, and you'll be free. And I remember not hearing God say that, but like feeling God's words like kind of interrupt what I was planning on doing, and realizing like, oh my gosh, this is not worth it. And so I'm very grateful that God spoke to me, because I don't think I would have had the strength to resist except by him giving me that sort of insight. So God was just very, very faithful. I mean, I'm a regular person that makes terrible mistakes and does bad things, but I think simply having that daily time in the Word helped me to, 1, hear God's voice clearer, but then also 2, I think it helped me believe God's words, recognizing that it is important. Because, I mean, anyone could go up to you and give you a bit of advice, but if you don't know them, it's like, well, why would I listen to you when I'd rather do this thing?
Yeah.
But I think by having God's word so present in my life, it was like, well, no, God knows what he's talking about. This is not a lie. Like, this is not made up. Like, God knows. So why would I not listen to him? Because I know he cares for me.
Yeah. Again, I'm reminded of something that probably doesn't fit real well, but one of the authors I talked to said there's one thing God can't do. He cannot leave you.
Oh?
Where's he going to go? I mean, he's omnipresent. He has no place to go.
Yeah.
So if you feel like you're absent or you're separated from God, just turn around, take a step back. He's there.
Right.
I thought that was interesting. I'd never thought of God being limited by where he could go, because he's everywhere.
It's true. I mean, can the author leave their story? Finish a book and you can move on to something else, but like, you're still through and through that book.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love analogies and metaphors, and I've learned through writing that every single word I pick, every single character I create, every single scene I design or whatever, they'll all bear my fingerprints every which way. Yeah, an editor can come in and like change some words and fix it up, but every single word I pick is my word and reflects on me in one way or another.
Yeah.
And as I thought about that, I was like, wait a second. That's probably true with God also and his creation. Because you can't create something that doesn't point back to you in like every single tiny little detail. You know, it'd be like, let's say, a painter who can only see the color red. That'll be pretty evident in what they paint.
Yeah.
or a painter who can see 1,000 more colors than we can see. That, I mean, we might not notice it, but that would be evident in his painting, whether we can see it or not. Like, anything that's created bears a fingerprint all over the place of the thing that created it. Simply down to, like, me describing a scene. Like, I love doing this thought experiment with people at different places. Like, I'll ask different people, like, hey, take like 5 minutes to write down on your phone and text me how you would describe this moment in this setting right here.
Yeah.
And we're all in the same place, we're all seeing the same things and hearing the same things, but how people describe it is so different because people focus on different things. One person might focus on the light, like, it's very light over there, very dark over here, and very gloomy over there. And there's just so many lights, but so many shadows as well, too. They might focus on the texture, like the walls are made of wood or the walls are made of concrete, whatever. And then the other person might focus on how they feel. Like, there's this soft music that makes me feel peaceful. And then another person might focus on, like, the people. Like, there's this person, there's that person, there's these people over there that are talking a little too loud. And then these people over there that are on their first date and it is not going well. Like, everyone focuses on their own little details. And it's just so interesting, like, seeing that all come together. And so then realizing, like, not just in describing a scene, but in the plot, in the characters, in the motivations, in even the antagonists, like every single detail of the story reflects back on the author in far more ways than we could ever really understand. My siblings now reading my newest book, they tell me all the time, like, it's just impossible for them to not hear my voice as they're reading it because they grew up with me. They know what I sound like. They know the words I use, and like, it's so obviously you.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way it's not you. Like, if I had no idea who the author was, I would have realized it was you even still, just because it sounds so much like you. So, but the cool thing is, sorry, let me ramble on here because I get really passionate about this. When I realized that about being an author, that my books will always point back to me one way or another, I realized too, like, well, what about creation? Like, in how many different ways does creation point back to who God is and the things that he values? Because that's another thing. You will write about the things you value, or not write about the things you don't value. For example, my books will include a surprising little amount of details about what people are wearing because I don't care. Or it will also not include much detail about what people eat because, again, I don't really care. And then I read these other books as like people are eating all the time. And it's like, why are you guys always eating? And it's just because that person likes to eat. They like food. And it's like, okay, so what? That's great for them. But like in our world, like, does our world show the things God cares about? And it's just so evidently true. Like, you can look at every single facet of creation and you'll just see beauty. Everywhere you go, it doesn't matter how far you zoom in or how far you zoom out. There's beauty everywhere. And like, even just little simple things like sleeping, that could just be a normal, boring thing. But it's like, have you ever watched a baby sleep? Like, it's just so peaceful and so wonderful. Or I have very vivid dreams. And I remember one time in college when I just had no time for very fun things at all. I always looked forward to dreaming because that's when I could go on my adventures. It's like, I might not be able to like go and play ultimate frisbee right now, but while I'm sleeping, I can. And God made that beautiful. Like, all these different elements, and food tastes great. We have music, we have paintings, like every single sense that we have, there's beauty and complexity in it. Like, even just simply down to touch, there's soft things to touch, coarse things to touch, like smooth things, whatever. And so then I got into like thinking about like creation, because God does say creation bears his name. And so how does creation bear God's name? And there's just so many things that you can look at, like the sun, the center of our solar system. All of life comes from the sun. All of light comes from the sun. Just like how Jesus says he is the way, the truth, and the life. He also says he's the light. And our planet revolves around the sun. If the sun dies, all of life here on Earth dies. Of course, God can't really die, but showing that God is the source of all life and that realistically everything does revolve around him, or everything should. Sometimes we don't like that and fight against that, but everything should revolve around him. So anyways, I could think of 100 different natural metaphors to God and the gospel, but like I've played this game with myself. I don't play this game with many other people, of like thinking of like the most obscure thing that you could find in creation. And how does that point back to God? So maybe, Mike, here, you can challenge me. What is like the most random thing in creation, and what is a spiritual like lesson you can learn from it?
Well,
you don't have to answer that part, but think of something obscure and challenge me with it.
I've been thinking, as you were talking, about something that I noticed recently.
Yeah.
And I thought, are you kidding me? I had seen this a lot and never really thought about it. But I was sitting and I saw a tiny, tiny little black speck go across my hand. It's some kind of bug. So I looked at it and I thought, well, maybe that's just a little fuzz, a black fuzz of something. But I watched it and it walked to the end of my finger and dropped off. It was a little tiny spider.
Wow.
And it went off my finger about 18 inches and was hanging there on a web waiting for wind to take it somewhere, I suppose.
Wow.
And I thought,
cool.
How did it get that much web inside its little tiny body?
Yeah.
What? And if you want to talk about evolution, what kind of an organism says, I think I'm going to develop this really strong, stringy thing that comes out of my body from somewhere and I can swing on it? Okay, that's...
I mean, I wish we could do that.
I thought the same thing. I'm not sure where it'd come out of, but, like Spider-Man's pretty cool. But let's see, your question was come up with an obscure
object in nature, and what is a spiritual lesson? And then I'll try and think of the spiritual lesson we can learn.
Okay, an obscure thing. Well, I already have a lesson from this, but let's see if yours matches mine. And I'm sorry, people, but my voice is going, but I'm not going to quit. There's a law called geotrophism. So that means that no matter how you throw a seed on the ground and you bury it, doesn't matter the orientation of that seed, the root will always go down and the stem will always go up. What does that mean, Philip?
So, like, the seed will position itself so that the stem's always down, and
No, the seed stays where it's at. It doesn't change its orientation. The root and stem
just know where to grow.
The root just knows to go down, and the stalk always goes up. It doesn't matter how it's planted, it will go that way, even if it means it has to curl underneath the seed shell to get there.
Okay. Yeah, well, I have never thought about that one before. So let's see. I'm a gardener, so I feel like I should have thought about that.
Yeah.
But I think part of the lesson you can learn from that, and there's probably so many to it, but God has engineered life in such a way to know where to search for life. Like these plants, they know that you have to go up to get life. You have to face the sun to get life. And deep subconsciously, these seeds know it even without thinking it. And so that can kind of tie into Romans chapter 1, in that like we all know God, but we suppress it. Well, I mean, those who don't respond to Christ, and before people respond to Christ, we suppress it. We distract ourselves from it. We fight against it because we're also selfish and we want our own way. We don't want to bow the knee to God, but deeply and subconsciously, we know that God is good and that God is true. And we see this all the time. People who say like, well, truth is relative. They only believe that to a certain degree. Everyone recognizes at a certain level that like, okay, not truth is relative. Like in the case of law, like truth is not relative. In the case of law, something happened and somebody's guilty and somebody's not. Like that is the truth. Now, sometimes we get it wrong on who's guilty and who's not, but there is an inherent truth there. And so even people who say like, there is no truth, like they know deep down, they just don't want to admit it.
Or my truth may be different than your truth.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, your understanding of the truth can be different than my truth, but the truth is truth.
Exactly. Yeah, it's still what it is.
So yeah, I think the lesson from that could be like God's wired all of creation to understand how to find life, and that's just innate. But we as humans have the free will to fight against that. Even though, like, yeah, like somebody might be like, no, I don't want to bow the knee to God, but they will still recognize that it's good to care for others. That's good to love others rather than harm others, because they know they don't want to be harmed. And so even though they might fight against God and not want to bow the knee to God, they still inherently recognize the truth that God puts forward as his morals. So what was the lesson that you took away from that?
Well, it probably altered a little just listening to you talk, which is a good thing. It kind of expands your horizons. But I was thinking that if we did not have free will, if God did not give us that freedom, then we would be like seeds. We would have our roots in the world, and our stems would be reaching up to praise God. In the end, that's how it's going to be. You either put your root down and your stalk up, or you're going to hell. You're not a good seed.
Yeah.
But we have free choice. And so we are able to put our roots up sideways any way we want, and we have to decide which way we're going to go because of free will. Satan rules the earth, so we are battling against that. But yeah, I'm a forester by trade, so I know a little bit about seeds. Anyway, that was an interesting discussion. I appreciated that.
Yeah, it's just interesting. In one of my books, I had this character who's kind of discipling another character who's not a Christian yet, but kind of investigating it. And they play that game where the non-believer, he thinks of something super obscure and he's like, okay, there's no way you can have a spiritual lesson from this. And one of the things that he picks is a stick.
Yeah.
Like he's hiking through the wilderness and he finds a stick. He's like, what about a stick? And the other guy's like, well, what kind of stick? Like a living stick, a dead stick, a grafted on stick? And he's like, what? You already know, like, there's already different kinds of sticks in your mind. He's like, okay, I don't know, whichever one. And then he goes through like, well, a dead stick is a stick that's separated himself from the life, from the true life. And that stick is really good for nothing other than being thrown onto a fire. Then there's the living stick that, is abiding in the life, abiding in the source of life, which would be God, and it's living, it's bearing fruit, it's vibrant, like it's alive. Then there's a grafted on stick that came from something else, but is now grafted onto that tree and is now alive as a result. And so anyways, it was just fun playing that game in that book because I was kind of like discovering it as they were playing that whole game too. Because I mean, you think about rocks. It's like rocks are like Jesus talks about rocks, like they're the foundation, like it's good to build your foundation on a rock rather than on sand or on dirt. Like build it on rock because it's more sure. It's like that strong foundation. And then trees, Jesus talks about trees or vines or bushes or even grass, lilies or planet Earth, even as a whole, is kind of interesting to think about. And seasons, that's another crazy one. Thinking about seasons and just how the gospel is so evident through just the seasons. Yeah. So it's a fun thought experiment that I like to play, and I like to challenge myself thinking of new things like, okay, there's no way this could have a spiritual implication, and then it always does.
Yeah, I can see where you can challenge yourself, and it's especially fun when you're challenging a character in the book, because then you're working both sides. Interesting. So what sparked your calling to write Christian fiction, and why do you stick with it, or do you plan to stick with it?
Well, I can't leave it.
So you're sticking.
There have been numerous times where I have tried to put it down. I'll be like, okay, God, you know what? I'm going to put this down and follow you. Yeah. And 2 weeks later, I get this inspiration of oh, I need to write this to encourage somebody with this thing. Yeah. And then I'm right back into it. And I don't want to put it down, but my first book I wrote before I could spell my name. I didn't write it, but I drew pictures and my mom would write down the words for me. And then slowly that advanced to, that was when I was really young, I wrote several books like that, having her write it down for me as I just drew the pictures, and then slowly advanced to like just short stories, writing it on my own. And then I started writing my own book, and I finished my first fiction novel at the age of 16. Like full length. It was like 96,000 words.
Well,
and then I finished my next full length novel like 5 months after that. And then for the next like 3 years, I finished a book a year, and it just kind of kept progressing. And my vision for it has slightly shifted, because it used to just be something that I liked doing for fun. And I was like, yeah, maybe I'll become famous, whatever.
Sure.
You know, every teenage boy has those like lofty ambitions, but
I still have them. What do you mean?
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Well, I would really hate to be famous, but I'd love for more people to read my book. So it's a hard balance there of like, what do I... Anyways, so then when I was in the Middle East, I was ending my time there in the Middle East, and I had to figure out, like, I'd already spent 2 years there, and I had to decide, was I going to recommit with the same missions agency for another 3 to 5 years, or am I going to go back to the U.S. and do something different? And so I spent a lot of time in prayer, because like, God, I need to make a decision on this. Like, I don't know what you want. Like, I'm willing to stay here if this is what you want me to do, but like, I don't really want to stay here, but I'm willing to if that's what you want, God.
Yeah.
And then one day in a coffee shop, I was writing, I think, and it just hit me. I call it a vision, but I don't know if I can really call it a vision. It's just like this idea hit me so strongly and so powerfully that like I could not see the computer in front of me. Like, I'm sure I could see it, but I was so consumed with this idea that I didn't really see it at all. And so I was typing down this vision, even though I couldn't really see the computer in front of me. I mean, at the moment, I wasn't thinking, wow, I can't see the computer in front of me. Like, I was just so consumed with this thought.
Yeah.
But I can't remember at all what was in front of me, because I just had this idea in my head of like, and this was the end conclusion of it. I felt like God was calling me to reach the world for Christ through speaking, to reach the world for Christ by waking up the global church through speaking and writing fiction. And that was a calling that God gave me in 2017. That was a calling that God gave me. And so I was like, okay, how do I do this? What's my next step? I was praying it over. I was looking up different missions organizations, like, okay, God, where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do? Obviously, going back to the States, maybe finding a ministry that I could write fiction for. And then the college ministry that I had been a student with back in college, naturally, and served a lot with them. The president reached out to me and he was like, hey, would you be willing to come back and be an intern for our ministry? Like, I know you're trying to figure out what God's calling you to do. And I was like, you know what? Like, this doesn't seem in line with what I feel like God's calling me to do, but I'll pray about it and I'll seek what God wants me to do. So I prayed about it and searched out, and I just couldn't find any ministry that could really help me do what I wanted to do. And so I was like, well, this is like I didn't want to just go back to the States and not have a plan. Like, I wanted to have some sort of step forward. And as I was praying about it more so, it just felt more and more clear that God was leading me back to that ministry to intern with them. I was like, God, why are you calling me to do this? And it just seemed like the right next step. I wasn't quite sure why, but it seemed like the right next step to like land back in the U.S. with the ministry that I loved, with people that I loved. Like, it was a nice like landing platform to be able to keep moving forward while like have kind of like a safe landing back in the U.S. So I said yes to that, and it wasn't until like 7 months later, I was still searching. My idea was I'll join them for a year, and during that time, that'll kind of like push back my deadline of finding the real ministry that I felt like God was calling me to. So I started doing a ton of searching, like, okay, where's a ministry that I could do this sort of work with? I started talking with like other ministries that like connect people with the correct ministries, and they just couldn't really find a good ministry for me to really do what I felt like God was calling me to do, like speaking and writing fiction, evangelism, missions, all that sort of stuff. And then out of the college ministry that I was a part of, I had no idea this was happening. Out of that college ministry, which is small, they only had like 20 people on staff. Out of it split out another ministry called the Great Commission Alliance, and their focus was on equipping believers in evangelism and discipleship. So I was like, you know what, I'll reach out to them and start talking to them. And so I talked to the founder and I was like, hey, like, I really have a passion for writing. Like, how does that come in line with what you guys do? And he's like, well, like, what's your passion for writing? Like, why do you want to write? I was like, well, I want to write to mobilize people, to help people to grow in evangelism and discipleship, like these things that I've experienced, that I've like seen like awesome fruits from. He's like, well, I mean, yeah, we want to be training people in evangelism and discipleship. So like, if that's what you're writing, you want to have be the end goal of your writing, then like, by all means, like, we'd love to have you come on our team and do your writing as part of your work. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so like, that's why God called me back to this ministry. That made no sense, but little did I know 6 months later, out of that ministry would come the exact ministry that I was wanting to join. And so it's like, of course, like the ministry that I was praying for God to lead me to didn't exist at the time. So he gave me the next big thing, leading me to the ministry that would introduce me to that ministry. And it's like,
yeah.
Anyway, so since then, it's just been cool how God has worked. And, you know, there's still so much progress to be made, so much more to learn, but I'm so grateful for where God has me and for where he's brought me, like just looking back through all the past several years. And honestly, I wish God had moved a little bit quicker, because I've been trying to publish my books for like 10 years until I finally got this book published. And that was a long waiting process of like, God, what are you ever going to open the door for this? And then God did. And it was just clear that that was God's timing. So
I heard someone say that God is the slowest person he knows, who's always on time.
Yeah, that's true. That makes sense. But I mean, God knows the future. God knows the plan. So like, why do we keep doubting him? It's crazy. Is
there a biblical truth or a passage that anchors you concerning the books that you've been writing?
Like a spiritual message?
It's kind of an open-ended question. You can make it what you like. I'm sure you have an answer.
Yeah, no, I do. So my most recent and my debut fiction novel, Jake Rogers' Planet, the inspiration came while I was in the Middle East, and it was my first year in the Middle East. And I was praying, like, I was thinking, like, God, what if, like, please don't call me to spend 20 years here. Like, I don't want to be here for 20 years. Like, that's so long away from my family and all my friends back in Colorado. Like, I don't want to be here for that long. And then I went and watched the movie The Martian. Have you watched The Martian?
I believe that's where the guy gets accidentally left.
Yeah, on Mars, yeah.
Yeah.
And as I was watching it, because I would do this thing, well, the ministry I worked with, we would do this thing called A Day with the Lord. And so every month we'd have a day with the Lord where we'd spend all day just connecting with God. And so what I would do is I would walk across the entire city to a movie theater. I wouldn't use Google Maps, and so I would take wrong turns all the time. But I'd get to this movie theater and I'd watch the movie by myself. And every single time God spoke so powerfully through that movie. And so this time, watching The Martian, I realized, you know, as scary as it might be to be on the other side of the planet and only get to see my family maybe once or twice a year for the next 20 years, like, that's not nearly as scary as it would be to get stranded on another planet and wonder, will I ever see another human again?
Yeah.
And right as I had that thought, God just spoke to me in my heart and was like, but even in that situation, if you were stranded on an alien planet and were wondering if you'll ever see another human again, even then, I would still call you not to be afraid. And that just blew my mind. I was like, yeah, that's true. And that's crazy, God. Like, do you realize, like, what you're trying to say right now? Like, that's absolutely insane. I was like, just imagine, like, I was just thinking, like, imagine the testimony of a Christian being stranded on Mars, like in The Martian, and just like their faith and their confidence in God through all of that. Like, what a testimony that would be. And so I realized, I was like, I have to write a book about that. And that ended up becoming this book. And so the main spiritual theme in it is like, even if you're stranded on an alien planet, you don't know what you can eat. You don't know what you can drink. You don't know what predators are hunting you. You don't know if you'll ever be able to go home or if you'll ever see another human again. And then there's these alien ruins here that this boy encounters. And he's like, what happened to all these aliens? Like, what killed them off? Is that thing still around? Will these aliens come back and start hunting me again? Like, so many unknowns. And then God speaks to him and says, but even in this crazy situation, I'm still with you, and because of that, you do not need to be afraid.
That is such a great and powerful lead-in to talking about your book. I suppose you knew that. But to talk about the Martian and what they went through, I imagine it might help if people knew the movie and all the calculations that the Martian had to go through to start growing those potatoes and rationing his food and all that stuff. That's amazing, though.
Yeah, now on this planet, the air is breathable, and there are already plants and animals, so he doesn't have to worry about trying to grow potatoes inside like in The Martian and create his own rain and all of that. But that brings in a whole extra realm of craziness of like, well, what are these plants? What are these animals? Like, what is the weather even like here on this planet? Like, at least the Martian knew, like, this is what Mars is like, whereas this character's like, this is just a totally new world, and I have no idea what's happening on it.
One of the reasons I started this podcast is because women were looking for books written from a male perspective with good, solid biblical principles for their sons to read. Would you say that your book might fit that description?
I didn't write it intending it for a young boy who doesn't have a father in his life, but I did write it intending it to be read by a young boy who, wants adventure, wants excitement. And like all of my books, my mission with all of my books is to inspire believers to adventurous and Christ-filled lives through wild steps of faith. And so my hope is any young believer any believer who reads my books will be inspired to take that next wild step of faith. So, I did write this book intending it to be a really fun story, a really fun adventure with a very strong spiritual message through the whole thing.
If it's not fun, it's probably not going to be read. It's not going to reach people. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. But I just love fun adventures. Like, I could tell you about the story when I accidentally trespassed on royal grounds in the Middle East. That was a crazy adventure.
Yeah.
Like, God knows how to lead us on adventures. Like, I think boys dream of adventure for a reason, and God wants to utilize that. But then our world, and unfortunately, oftentimes, like, American Christianity teaches people, no, play it safe, don't take big risks. And it's like, well,
yeah,
where in the Bible does it say that? Like,
yeah.
So my hope is my books will inspire people to see that God does have an awesome plan and will lead them on an awesome adventure. And so for anyone who is wanting a good, solid Christian book that's really fun for their kids, like, that is one of the main reasons why I wrote this book, because you can never have a shortage of awesome Christian fiction. And so I've had many people reach out to me saying like, hey, is this book like that? And it's like, definitely. Like, I tried to make this book as clean as possible, like no curse words or anything. The only thing that I caution people about, and it's kind of more of a joking thing, is he encounters a lot of poop in the story. And so he ends up talking about a lot of poop. So as long as somebody's okay with reading about some poop in a story, then like this book is fine for them.
But do you get to read much Christian fiction?
Yeah, not as much as I'd like to, but I listen to a lot of books on audiobook, and it's always fun when sometimes Christian fiction can be a little bit preachy, which I know everyone kind of says that, and everyone says, like, my book isn't preachy, like, it's not cringy, it's not preachy, and so I'm gonna say that same thing, it's not, but I think with, like, all the encounters that I've had with non-believers and all the missions work that I have done, I think that helps me not make a book preachy because I can make it realistic. And I think with this book, the main character is already a Christian. And so the preachy, I don't want to say preachy, but the spiritual lessons in it are applicable to everyone. It's not like trying to convince a non-believer to become a Christian, though I do hope non-believers will read the book and will recognize like, oh, wow, this is what it's like to walk with God. Like, I want to learn more about this,
Yeah.
But it's not like Jake's going through this whole story, like trying to wrestle with trusting in Jesus. So it's not necessarily a book like that, which I do like books like that. But this one isn't exactly that. It's more like, this is what it really looks like to walk with God and the close relationship you can have with God when you're in a state of total dependence on him.
Well, of the books you've read, do you feel like any of them are kind of missing the mark or the opportunity to make a statement for Christ?
Here's the tricky part about writing fiction is you need to have such a grasp on the gospel and on God's truths, because when you're writing and intending to bring in God's truths, you have to have a very nuanced view of it, because you're kind of looking at it from a different view than everyone else would be looking at it. Like when you read the Bible, you're a reader. To write the Bible, which we're not writing the Bible, but in a sense, Christian authors are kind of writing a Bible in that they're intending to speak truth to people. You really do have to be careful, because you're taking these truths and you're looking at them from another angle, and you need to make sure that you understand these truths in order to show that slightly different angle to represent it well and to represent God well. So it's hard. Now, one of my favorite things to do is to propose a question and then to never answer it. Because it's just a hard question to answer. Like a book series that I've been working on for years, and hopefully it gets out there, is based on like Christians in Colorado who, like, it's set several years in the future when Christianity is being hunted. So the states like has made Christianity illegal and they're killing Christians. And so the question that I propose through the book is, what is the true and authentic Christian response if you're being hunted for your faith? Do you hide? And there's a group of Christians that are hiding underground so that the government doesn't know that they're there. Do you step forward and keep sharing the gospel despite the danger? Do you fight the government and try to overthrow it to then reestablish freedom of religion? Or do you put on a mask and basically conform to what the government wants you to be, which is a very passive form of Christianity that doesn't really hold to the truth? And so the book is all exploring, like, what happens if you do this? What happens if you do that? And like walking through different people who live different forms of that and the positive and negative sides of each, which is fun to explore. Right.
Is there a lesson that you feel God has taught you as you write in your writing life?
So many. You want to narrow that question down a little bit for me?
Yeah. Would you name one lesson?
One lesson. That's a good question. One lesson that God's taught me is that, like, being the author, these characters going through craziness, wondering like, oh my gosh, am I going to make it out of this alive? Like, how's it going to turn out? Like, thinking like, man, it'd be so nice for them to know that I'm the author writing all of this, and that I care for them, and that I want good to come about. Like, that could just bring them so much peace. And then God like speaks to my heart, is like, like, yeah, Philip, who's your author? And I was like, oh my gosh, like, it's so obvious. It was like God was baiting me into something. I was like, okay, yeah. Because like, when I was learning that, there's like all these things that I was stressed about. And I was like, okay, I hear you guys.
Yeah.
So there's one. A more recent lesson. So my next book, I haven't announced what it is yet, but I have started announcing what the message is from it. So all my books I want to have kind of be like an unofficial discipleship curriculum. So this book helps young guys and girls, or really anyone, recognize that God has a good plan, that God knows what he's doing, and that we don't need to fear, and that we should step out and follow God. So my next book, I was thinking like, okay, God, like, I know you're calling me to write this book, but I don't know what the spiritual theme is. Like, what should I do? And I just felt like God was telling me, like, just start writing. You'll figure it out. It'll come as you go. And like, okay. So I start writing, and I'm like trying to figure out like I don't know where I'm going with this. Like, what do you want me to do? And he's like, just keep writing. And it's like, I don't know, God. Like, I need the spiritual theme for this. And then God told me, he was like, the theme is just start walking. Just as I told you, just start writing. You don't know where it's going, but take that next step. And so people hopefully after reading this book, they're like, okay, I want to follow God on an adventure. Like, I believe that God is capable of amazing things, but like, what do I do? Like, I don't know how to get there. Like, say if somebody's like, I feel like God's calling me to be president of the United States. What do I do? Just start campaigning? Like, no, that, like, there's got to be a step before that.
Yeah.
And so the lesson in this book is like, you might not know how to get to where God's calling you to be. You might not know the path. You might not know the next steps, but you probably do know a step. Take that and then turn back to God and ask him what you need to do. Okay, now take the next step. And so just start walking, and God will lead you as you're walking. It's very hard to direct an object that's not moving. Like a car. Turning a car is absolutely impossible if it's not moving forward first. Yeah. So I'm sure you might have heard that analogy before. But so that's the new lesson that God taught me. And I'm learning that lesson as I'm writing this book, because I don't know exactly where this book is going. But God's called me to just start writing, and I'm afraid then I'm going to have to trash like 40,000 words because it wasn't what it needed to be.
Yeah.
But God is good, and he's called me to just start writing. So, yeah.
Your characters will do that to you. You were surprised at what they did and said, but wait, what about everything else?
Yeah, I'm just really glad that God, as being our author, isn't learning while he's on the job.
Yeah, he's not a trainee.
Yeah, I feel sorry for all my characters. I was like, what are you doing to me? I was like, I don't know yet. I don't know.
Just hang in there with me, bud.
Yeah, we're both learning. Like, it's okay. Every kid on the planet is like, Dad, what are you doing? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, like, God's calling us to do this thing.
But I can look back on sitting here in this seat, interviewing someone in Denver, Colorado.
Nice.
This started in the 60s.
Wow.
I could just see so many subtle, unsuspecting things. You wouldn't thought, well, that's going to lead well, that's going to be big. No, it's just a piece of it. Mm-hmm. And it's being woven together into this amazing, amazing fabric.
Yeah. Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, you were not around in 1965.
I was not. You have to wait another 30
not
years.
Not in the form we recognize now, anyway.
Yeah, I was in a very different form. That's true. But yeah, no, I like the idea of like a tapestry, and like, because we're all individual threads, and God's like, go under this one.
Yeah.
Go over that one. Like, okay, go under this one. I'm like, why, God? What
I don't
are you
like
doing?
That color.
Yeah, like, why do you keep, like, there's no method to this madness, God. And then, like, we step back 30, 40 years later, and it's like,
wow.
Okay, that lines up with that, which lines up with that, which lines up with that, which lines up with that. And if I had said no to that thing, that whole trickle down, like, who would I even be today if it were not for that little decision?
And it's painful to pull a single thread out of there.
Yeah.
It hurts.
It's true.
Could you come up with a single sentence that would convince a skeptic old man to read your book?
Well, that's a lot of pressure there.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, let me prime the pump a little. Again, it's because it's still recent in my mind. I edited it not too long ago, but the episode 19, Michael Swigert. When I asked him that, I mean, the guy spent years and years in prison, and he didn't pause a second. He said, "Yeah, buy my book and read it."
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's pretty simple.
I think it's hard to like pick out just one line for a guy, because I want this book to be for more than just guys, even though that is my primary audience. For a guy, it would be, God desires to lead you on an adventure through all sorts of craziness. And this book shows that crazy adventure of like, what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
What's going to happen tomorrow? How do I do this thing? How do I live life? And I mean, I just love the open-ended thought of, what would you do if you woke up on an alien planet and you had no idea what anything was and what was around you? Like, that thought is both terrifying and thrilling. Yeah. Terrifying in that it's like, well, how am I going to even survive a day? Like, this bug that's biting me, is it going to plant an egg inside of me and like grow into something crazy? Or like, oh, that creature over there, is it going to like throw venom at me from like 15 feet away? Like, this plant right here and this fruit, like, can I eat that? Or is it going to cause my skin to peel off? Like, I don't know. Like, that's the terrifying part. Of course, then on this planet, there's alien ruins, but then on the other side is like, but now you have a whole planet that's unknown, uncharted, undiscovered. And I think every single guy out there is like longing for that place that nobody knows of.
Yeah.
You know, like we've pretty much explored our whole planet, unfortunately. Like, you know, there's no new Yellowstones hiding out there for someone to find. There are little nooks and crannies that we can discover for ourselves, but like others know about it. So it's just like, what if there was a world and even like an entire expired alien race and their cities that you could explore and be the only one who knows all of these things about it? Like, what sort of wonders would you uncover? And so that's kind of here. This might be my one line for it, and it's the top of the back cover copy. It says, Jake is about to embark on a perilous adventure through an alien wilderness filled with hidden wonders and hazards. So both that like terrifying hazard side and that wonderful like wonder of like, but this is a whole new world. Like what's out there? Yeah.
Well, Philip, how can folks find your book and how can they engage with you?
Yeah. My name, Philip Wilder, is the key. Philip is spelled with one L. That's the important part. But I'm on Instagram. My Instagram handle is at Philip_Wilder_author. If you just look up Philip Wilder, you'll probably find me too.
Probably.
Additionally, I have my website, philipwilder.com.
Very
Philip
good.
again with one L. And then you can email me. My email is philip@philipwilder.com. So try to make it easy for people to find me. But I love talking with people, so please reach out. I'd love to connect with any of you listening. Of course, you can also find my books on Amazon. And for this book, Jake Rogers' Planet, it's also on Audible, which is fun too. So got a great guy narrating it. But it's a fun adventure, and I just would love for all of you listening to be able to join with me in this crazy planet and just explore this planet as I explored it in writing it.
As we close out, is there a short message you would like to leave with the audience?
That's good. I would say eternity is just around the corner. It might be 60, 70, 80 years off, but realistically, in the grand scheme of things, that is just around the corner. And all the things that we have today, the money, the houses, the cars, or maybe the lack thereof, none of that will matter. Once we step foot, I'm certain, every single one of us, even probably the Apostle Paul, once we step foot into eternity, we will look back on this life and realize, I could have done so much more. And I also like to think of this mental image. Imagine there's a line of people in line to appear before God and go to heaven. And then there's a line of people right here that's in line to appear before God and be sentenced to hell. And the difference, of course, is somebody trusting in Jesus. But imagine that this line goes first. They're all going down. And as I'm walking down through this line, slowly moving forward through this line, I see all the people in that line. And I see all the people that I knew in that line. And I don't want a single one of them to be able to look over at me and be like, Philip, you knew about this?
Yeah.
And you didn't tell me? Like, I thought you cared about me. How could you know that I was heading towards an eternity of being separated from God and not tell me? So I don't want that to ever be the conversation. I want every single person that I know to know what I believe and what I believe is ahead of them. Unfortunately, I don't want that to be the case, but I want them at least to be warned by me. I'd rather the conversation be those people in that line seeing me in this other line and them being like, Philip, I'm so sorry. I wish I had responded to what you said. I wish I had taken you more seriously. Like, I'd way rather that. It would still be so sad. But at least in that case, the weight of them being separated from God is by no means because of me. And so that's my encouragement to anyone listening. Eternity's coming. It's very real and it's awesomely long, except if we do not have Jesus. And so another analogy that I like to think of is like nobody in running or practicing for a marathon focuses all their training time on that first quarter inch of a marathon. Because I'd just be so foolish. Like, okay, yeah, sure, you're the first person to pass that quarter inch. But then what about the whole rest of the race?
Yeah.
You know, and I think so oftentimes here on this life, we like to focus on the 80 years we have here, the 90, whatever years we have here. And realistically, in light of eternity, it's not even the first quarter inch of a marathon. Like, I'd way rather sacrifice that first quarter inch of a marathon to then be prepared for the rest of the race Just like I would way rather spend this life here serving others, sacrificing, giving things away or whatever, like not living for myself, because I know there's going to be eternity of pleasure and an eternity of joy. Like, it'd be really cool to own a boat. It'd be really cool to own a farm and have cows and a private jet, and even just flying. Like, that'd be cool. It'd be awesome to have my own pilot's license.
Yeah.
But I'll have an eternity being able to pursue dreams like that. On this life, like, you can't take boats, you can't take houses, you can't even take farms, unfortunately, into heaven. You can't even take books into heaven, though maybe people will remember them, I don't know. But you can take people.
Yeah.
And so,
that's true.
Hopefully, everyone listening, and myself included, we can live that.
Exactly. That's pretty good. That's pretty powerful. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with all of us here on this podcast. Can we close with a word of prayer?
Absolutely. And again, thank you, Mike, so much for inviting me on and letting me come and share. It's been wonderful getting to talk with you, and I just really appreciate you. And I really hope this podcast can be a huge blessing to everyone listening.
I hope that too. So I have two audiences that I hope are blessed. One is the authors and the other is the viewers. Without the authors, I would have no podcast. So I'm just the person that winds you up and turns you loose and you take off. And I appreciate that because I don't think I can carry the whole show.
Thank you do great.
Thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome.
Well, it must be my wonderful voiceover voice that is so... Anyway.
Or the Holy Spirit alive within you. Either one.
We hope. Yeah, I do appreciate that. Thank you, Jesus, for this time that Philip and I have spent together. We thank you for his amazing experiences that you've given him and that he's opened his door to receive those experiences, that he listens to your call. He writes from the heart. He writes at your calling, I do believe. And all that we all would, and that we could recognize that you are in control. And no, we don't know what we're doing most of the time, but you know. And you have a plan for us, a plan for our good. And we know that you give us different road maps, road signs. Some of it is Christian fiction. And so we thank you for the books that Philip writes. And we ask that you continue to send him good storylines, that he stays engaged and he's covered constantly by your grace. Watch over him as he travels, as he meets people, and may no one in the other line look over and say, why didn't you tell me? They'll all say, I wish we'd listened. So Lord, we just give you all the praise and all the thanks. We ask these things in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you again, Mike.
Well, thank you, Philip. It's been great. Thanks for joining us on the Wordsmith Forge Christian Fiction Podcast. I hope Philip Wilder's story stirred your sense of purpose and reminded you that the world is wide and God is present in every part of it. Whether through writing, missions, or moments in nature, Philip challenges us to live with an eternal perspective and take bold steps of faith. If you enjoyed this conversation, tap like, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who loves stories that inspire courage and conviction. Until next time, stay grounded, stay inspired, and as always, keep reading clean. This is Mike Baines, out.